My friends, listen carefully today, for I bring before you a story not of nations, not of governments, not of politics, but of the power of one soul. My friends, listen closely, for what I am about to tell you is not just a story of nations, or governments, or leaders. It is the story of how the destiny of great powers can change because of the heart of one person. People often believe that relationships between countries are built on trade deals, military strength, or economic agreements. But that is not the truth. Relationships between people or between nations are built on trust, and trust is built in the heart. When the heart of one person turns away from truth, that trust begins to crumble. There was a time when the bond between the United States and India was called unshakable. The two nations stood together as symbols of democracy and freedom. They believed in the same dream, the dream that knowledge, innovation, and cooperation could shape the world for good. The youth of India studied in America. The entrepreneurs of both lands built bridges of opportunity. It was more than diplomacy, it was destiny. People said, these two nations will lead the new century. But then, my friends, came one Indian. Not a soldier with an army, not a ruler with power, but a single individual. And through one decision, one act, one moment of selfishness, the entire structure of trust began to shake. It wasn't the act itself that destroyed the bond. It was the spirit behind the act, pride, arrogance, the refusal to listen to conscience. For whenever pride enters the heart, destruction soon follows. Pride blinds us. It makes us believe we are greater than truth itself. The tragedy was not that something was done, but that something sacred was broken, faith. When faith is broken, even the strongest alliance can turn to dust. You see, nations do not fall because of the weakness of systems, but because of the weakness of character. And the greatest enemy of character is pride. One person's pride can cause the world to lose faith in millions. When the news spread, people began to point fingers. Some blamed governments, some blamed policy, but the real root was deeper, it was moral. For every destruction, there is always a moral reason behind it. When truth is abandoned, peace begins to die. When integrity is lost, respect fades away. And when humility disappears, even friendship between nations begins to wither. But, my friends, destruction is not the end. It is a mirror. It shows us what we failed to guard. It reveals the weakness we refuse to see. When something falls apart, it does not mean it is over. It means there is a lesson waiting to be learned. The breaking of a relationship, even one between nations, can become the beginning of a renewal if the people have the courage to look within. So, I say to every listener, do not only see the one who destroyed, look also at what can be rebuilt. You may not hold political power, but you hold the power of truth. You may not sit in the seat of authority, but you sit in the seat of influence in your home, your work, your community. One person destroyed, yes, but another can heal. One person divided, but another can unite, and maybe that another is you. For history is not shaped by the few who break it, but by the many who dare to restore it. Nations rise and fall, but character endures forever. And when truth returns to the heart of one person, it can bring two nations and the whole world back together again. Once upon a time, my friends, there was a bond that inspired hope across the world, the bond between the United States and India. It was not just a partnership of convenience, it was a partnership of vision. Two great democracies, built on the values of freedom, opportunity, and human dignity, walking side by side. The world looked upon them and said, here lies the future, two nations, one purpose, one dream. For years, that dream stood tall. The youth of India looked toward America with admiration, seeing innovation, education, and excellence. The people of America looked toward India with respect, seeing intellect, resilience, and spirit. It was a friendship written not in ink, but in the hearts of millions. But as history has always shown us, even the strongest bonds can be shaken by the actions of one. One person, one mistake, one decision born from pride rather than wisdom, and suddenly, the fabric of trust begins to tear. That's how fragile human relationships can be, my friends, and the same truth applies to nations. The act may have seemed small at first, but its consequences echoed across oceans. It wasn't the policy that broke the friendship, it was the betrayal of trust. For when one person values ambition more than integrity, when they chase recognition more than righteousness, the damage reaches far beyond what the eyes can see. The tragedy of it all is not that one person failed, but that millions were affected by that failure. Governments hesitated, trust weakened, conversations that once flowed freely began to falter. The warmth of friendship turned cold, not because of hatred, but because of disappointment. And disappointment, my friends, is heavier than anger. It lingers in the heart, whispering that something precious has been lost. You see, between nations, just as between people, trust is not built overnight. It takes years of honesty, years of cooperation, years of belief. But it takes only one spark of arrogance to set the whole house ablaze. Pride, that quiet destroyer, often wears the mask of confidence. It whispers, "You know better than the rest." It makes one believe they can act without consequence, speak without wisdom, and decide without accountability. But pride never travels alone. It always brings destruction in its shadow. And yet, even in destruction, there is a lesson. For when trust is broken, it teaches us what we should have guarded more carefully. When relationships are tested, they reveal the strength of our values. The breaking of this friendship between the two nations did not begin in a conference room or a courtroom. It began in the heart of one person who forgot the weight of their influence. But remember, this failure is not final. Even the most shattered trust can be restored if truth is allowed to speak again. For just as one person can destroy, another can heal. One voice can divide, but another can unite. The future is not written by the mistakes of the past, but by the courage of those who choose to make things right. So I say, do not despair when nations stumble. Do not lose faith when friendships break. Let this story remind us all power without humility brings downfall, but humility with truth brings restoration. When people of both nations remember the values that once united them, honesty, respect, and shared purpose, then the bridge will be rebuilt. And though one Indian may have broken the trust, it will take millions of Indians and Americans together to rebuild it stronger, wiser, and eternal. It wasn't the act alone that brought ruin, my friends. It was the spirit behind it, the spirit of arrogance, of pride, of self-centeredness that whispers, "I can do what I want and nothing will happen." But history has proven, again and again, that pride has always been the seed of downfall. Empires have fallen, leaders have faded, and friendships have shattered, all because of that one silent killer, pride. When a person begins to believe they are above truth, they begin to fall from grace, and when one individual represents a nation, their fall is not theirs alone. It becomes a shadow cast upon millions. The United States and India, two nations bound by years of friendship, began to feel that shadow. Suspicion entered where once there was trust. Distance replaced closeness. The warmth of mutual respect turned to cold silence. All because one heart allowed pride to rule instead of humility. Pride is a deceiver. It makes you think you are strong when you are actually weak. It blinds the eyes and hardens the heart. It tells you that you are building something great, but in truth, you are digging your own pit. This one individual thought he was acting with power, but in reality, he was planting seeds of destruction. That's what pride does. It fools you into believing you are right, even when everything around you is breaking. And I tell you, my friends, pride never destroys alone. It carries others with it. It shakes institutions, it wounds reputations, and it tears relationships apart. Between two great nations, the smallest act of arrogance can echo like thunder. Because what connects nations is not just paper agreements, it's faith, belief, respect. And when pride steps in, those invisible threads begin to snap one by one. But listen carefully, every fall has a message. Every collapse has a warning. When pride rises, humility must return, or the fall will be complete. The only cure for pride is truth, spoken from the heart. Truth humbles the proud, it restores what was broken, and it brings light into darkness. That is why I say, the tragedy of one person's arrogance can become the starting point of many people's awakening. Perhaps this fall was not meant only for shame, but for reflection. Perhaps it was to remind both nations and every citizen that trust cannot be taken for granted. You cannot walk proudly in the world thinking your success gives you license to act without consequence. True greatness is not measured by how high you rise, but by how deeply you remain grounded in humility. Pride says, I don't need anyone, but humility says together we are stronger. Pride divides, humility unites. Pride shouts, humility listens. Pride destroys, humility rebuilds. The relationship between nations, like the relationship between souls, thrives only when humility stands at the center. So even though one person's pride brought distance, it can also inspire a new generation to act differently, to walk in truth, to lead with integrity, to remember that respect is earned, not demanded. Let this be the lesson we carry forward, that no matter how powerful, how intelligent, or how successful we become, the moment we lose humility, we lose everything that truly matters. And if one person's pride could destroy a bridge between nations, then one person's humility can surely rebuild it stronger, wiser, and everlasting. Because nations, my friends, just like people, can be betrayed, and when betrayal enters, it doesn't always come with violence or noise. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the form of disappointment. Trust, once broken, is like a mirror that shatters into 1,000 pieces. You can try to mend it, but the cracks will always remind you of what once happened. The bond between the United States and India was built on decades of faith, respect, and shared ideals. But when one act of selfishness shattered that bond, the wound ran deep, not because of what was done, but because of what it represented. You see, betrayal is not just about the action, it's about the loss of belief. When one side begins to wonder if the other can still be trusted, something sacred is lost. And that is what makes betrayal so painful. It takes years to build trust, years to nurture understanding, and only one moment to destroy it. That one Indian who acted without integrity didn't just harm his own reputation, he placed doubt in the hearts of millions. His choice became a symbol of what happens when personal ambition outweighs collective responsibility. But remember this, betrayal never happens in isolation. It spreads, it infects, it causes those who once believed in unity to begin questioning everything. Suspicion grows, faith weakens, and the beauty of partnership fades into cold calculation. Suddenly, words like friendship and cooperation lose their warmth. Every promise is re-examined, every gesture is doubted. And soon, What was once a bond of trust turns into a wall of caution. Yet, my friends, even in the face of betrayal, there lies a profound truth. The destruction of trust is not the end. It is a mirror reflecting the values that must be restored. For what truly binds nations together is not paper agreements or political speeches. It is the moral fiber of their people. And that moral strength must be greater than the mistakes of any one person. The world often focuses on the one who betrayed, but far more powerful are those who rise to rebuild what was lost. For every act of betrayal, there must come an act of courage. For every fall, there must come a rise. The question is not who broke it, but who will fix it. When a bridge collapses, the builders do not stare at the rubble forever. They pick up their tools and begin again, stronger and wiser. So too must nations learn this truth, that while betrayal can wound, forgiveness and understanding can heal. It will take time, yes, it will take patience, but it will also take humility, the humility to admit wrongs, to rebuild faith, to say, we can be better than this. Because, my friends, no betrayal has the power to destroy a bond that is rooted in shared purpose. The friendship between the United States and India was never just political. It was spiritual, cultural, human. It was built on the idea that when two nations walk in truth, they can lead the world toward peace and progress. That vision cannot be erased by one act of pride or one moment of deceit. Yes, trust may have been broken, but not destroyed. It waits like a seed beneath the ashes for the rain of truth to make it bloom again. And when it does, when honesty returns, when humility replaces arrogance, the bond will not only be restored, it will be reborn stronger, deeper, and wiser. Because betrayal, though painful, can never defeat truth. Truth endures, and truth, my friends, is what always wins in the end.